video. Today, I'm going to be talking about an episode of Beyond Oak Island. And this show is a spin-off of The Curse of Oak Island that follows the Lagina brothers and their partners for Oak Island, which is up in Nova Scotia. And this episode is called Finders Keepers. And what this episode is about is people who have found treasure. This episode starts off with Marty Lagina and Craig Tester, who's a partner of the Laginas on Oak Island. And what Marty Lagina and Craig Tester did, they invested in a company called Global Marine Exploration. And what Global Marine Exploration does is the shipwreck hunting company. And the owner, Robert Pritchard, has been diving since 1991. And he's been diving ever since then. Then he started hanging out with treasure hunters. And years later, after he's been doing that, he went to the Dominican Republic and he got some contracts to look for shipwrecks on a couple sides of the island, and they found multiple ships. And then in 2016, Global Marine Exploration, they discovered 5 shipwrecks off the coast of Cape Canaveral. And Marty and Craig Tester, they invested for that project. And they invested a large sum of money because the equipment that was needed is very expensive. And one of the ships had 3 bronze cannons, and each bronze cannon is worth $1 million each. And these cannons had French marks. Once they found the shipwrecks, they notified Florida, and they gave Florida the location and what artifacts they found off of these shipwrecks. They didn't bring anything to the surface, they just were looking for it. And Global Marine Exploration brought in archaeologists, and the archaeologists looked at the anchors, and they could tell how much the ship could carry of treasure. And lowest amount of treasure from the ships is $300 million, and the highest determined value, $1.2 billion. And what ended up happening is Florida state officials, they used the knowledge that they got from Global Marine Exploration, which is private information and Florida is not allowed to share. They went behind Global Marine Exploration's back and they started talking with France. And they used their property and data they had collected from the shipwrecks. And the Florida state officials determined that the shipwreck was a French ship. And also, the French ship was carrying a French obelisk that was in one of the cities that was in St. Augustine, Florida. And Spain had most of Florida, but the French had a city there. And there was a war between Spain and France at the French colonization in St. Augustine, Florida. And potentially these shipwrecks could be Spanish galleons. But since there was bronze cannons with French marks, the Florida state officials decided that it was a French shipwreck. And there's no proof that it's a French shipwreck. So they told France that they found 5 shipwrecks, and all these shipwrecks could potentially be British, Spanish, or French. And these state officials just said, these are French shipwrecks. Now France is claiming it, but they're not going to do anything about it. So now Global Marine Exploration is suing Florida because they used their intellectual property that was not supposed to be used. Global Marine Exploration is suing Florida for $110 million. And Marty and Craig, they went and talked with Robert Pritchard. And there's a story to be told, and we can't tell that story. And it's just wrong what the government of Florida did to us. That is just majorly screwed up. Another thing they talked about is these British guys, they found a hoard of 300 Viking coins and jewels and some other artifacts. And what you're supposed to do is, once you've found that, you're supposed to tell your local coroner and tell them that you found this treasure. And this act is called the Treasure Act, and this act was put into place in the 1990s. And then there's also the Treasure Value Committee. They will value what you found, and they'll give the landowner and you 50% of what its value is. That rule is actually really fair, but these guys, they didn't want to follow the rule. They were just greedy, and this hoard that they found was worth $3.8 million. And they sold pretty much all the artifacts from that hoard, and there's about 30 coins left and a couple of rings and something else that they got caught And also, Gary Drayton, one day he was in a pub in Britain, and some guy came up to him and he's like, "You want to buy some old coins?" And he kind of learned the story of these guys that found this treasure, and they were selling it off, and he was like, something is really wrong with this. He has a connection to this story, and that's pretty crazy. If these guys had gone to the British government, each guy could have walked away from $3 to $5 million each for turning in this treasure, but they got greedy and decided to sell it without letting the British government know. And that was not good. And what happens is museums have the chance of buying all these artifacts from you, and they'll go into museums. And here's a crazy fact. If you go to a British museum, 90% of the artifacts in those museums have been found by treasure hunters. And I was like, wow, that's really crazy. I really like the rule, and it gets put on public display. That is really cool. And I totally agree with that rule. And then the next one, this one is the Holy Grail of shipwrecks. This shipwreck is a Spanish galleon called the San Jose. And the Spanish galleon sank in 1708 when it was in battle with a British ship. The British had figured out that the San Jose was going to be carrying a large amount of treasure, and they decided to send a couple of their ships around that area. What they ended up doing was they got into a battle, and at some point during that battle, the San Jose blew up. And a couple years ago, the San Jose was found. The treasure was valued at $17 billion. And now it's worth $20 billion. And it has gold and silver and gems that are in this shipwreck. And the ship was found in 2015. And a private company was looking for it, but they also had some working with the Colombian government to go out on this expedition. And it took them 2 expeditions to find San Jose. And on the second expedition, they found it, and now Colombia is claiming that it's all theirs. And the company that found it is like, no, we found it, it's ours. And Spain is trying to claim it, so there's a giant battle for this shipwreck. This is pretty crazy. And in 2018, me and my parents going through Panama Canal cruise, and our first stop was in Cartagena, Colombia. And while we were in Colombian waters, I had this thought in the back of my head. We could have just gone over the richest shipwreck the world has ever seen, called the San Jose. And whenever I'm on a cruise ship, we could have just passed a shipwreck worth billions of dollars that has never been discovered. I always loved thinking that. This shipwreck is definitely causing a big storm, and it's mayhem right now, and it's going to be that way for a while until it is resolved. And then the last one that they talked about is Yamashita's treasure. And Yamashita was a Japanese general in World War II. The Japanese, during World War II, they stole billions and billions of dollars worth of gold, gems, jewelry, all kinds of stuff from China and other places they invaded. And during the end of the war, what they ended up doing was they went to the Philippines and they started putting treasure all over the country. And I think there's something over 140 plus treasure sites. Rojas, one day he was walking and he found a tunnel and he went into it and he went a good ways in, and all of a sudden he found these crates, and in these crates was gold bars. And he also found a golden Buddha which had gems in it, and some of it to his house. And somehow Ferdinand Marcos found out that Rojas had found this treasure. Ferdinand Marcos, who was the dictator of the Philippines, his guys took all the treasure that Rojas had found, and they arrested him and tortured him. And they were trying to get the location of where he found this treasure. And Rojas would not give up the location where he found it. And they'd let him go, and then sometime later they'd arrest him and do the same thing again and again and again, and finally he revealed the location of where he found the treasure. And Rojas found this treasure in 1971. And later on, after Ferdinand Marcos was no longer the dictator of the Philippines, Rojas sued Marcos, and the Rojas family won the lawsuit, and the total value awarded to him was $22 billion. And a little while later, the ruling was thrown out because Roger Rojas had died, and they couldn't put a value on Ferdinand Marco had stolen from Roger Rojas. He had died before the second trial was done. The story still continues because there's still more treasure buried throughout the Philippines, and there's actually a show on the History Channel called Lost Gold of World War II, and it's on the History Channel. This show shows this crew looking for treasure that was put there by the Japanese army commanded by Yamashita. And by the time he was kicked out, it was said that he had found a whole bunch of treasure that was stolen by Japan in World War II. And that is where the bulk of his net worth came from. And his net worth is supposedly to be over $100 billion. And that is from all the treasure that he had found hidden throughout the Philippines. And there still is more sites to be discovered, and there's billions and billions of dollars more to be found out there in the Philippines. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of me talking about finders keepers. And in the next couple weeks, I will be posting a couple videos about some rules that I think should happen with treasure hunting on land, and something that I think should happen with shipwrecks. So stay tuned for those videos, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the bell icon down below so you can be notified when I upload videos. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to smash the like button. Thank you guys for watching, and if you ain't dreaming, you ain't living. Don't forget to dream big.